So Senator Jacob Javits offered me the New York State senatorial appointment through the Naval Academy. And he said, you can be in the astronaut program from the Naval Academy. You can be a pilot and all that. I said, yeah, but I have to do all that stuff with the boats and stuff. I said, I'm not into boats. I'm into airplanes. And he said, well, you can always just get the congressional appointment from your congressional district. You're one of the very top guys in the state. He said, so you'll definitely get that. So I went back to the congressional district and asked to get the appointment from the congressman, and he ended up giving it to the fellow who was number 8 in the congressional district competition, who happened to be the son of the Republican mayor of Glens Falls. And so I was just astonished that had happened that way. And so I thought that, well, even though I'd planned for all these years to be an astronaut and to be involved in the program, that I'd better become a lawyer to try to retune the American legal system, because it didn't seem to be in tune that this was going on. And then so I go to Harvard College and Harvard Law School, and then I came to see that it wasn't just that the American government was out of tune, that it was playing a completely different song than we'd been taught in high school civics courses of what was going on, and that this whole national security state had been imposed upon our country since 1947, and that there was this whole realm of secrecy covering everything, and there was covert operations going on. And so I became sort of a specialist in countering covert operations and trying to establish constitutional principles in our government, et cetera. And so I ended up going back to Harvard after being out practicing for a period of time. Went back to Harvard Divinity School to do my master's work and PhD work in comparative social ethics, inquiring into the theological sources of human rights. And it was there that I was contacted by the Jesuit National Headquarters and asked to become chief counsel for the Jesuits at their headquarters at the National Social Ministry Office in Washington. So that's how I got there. And it was there that I was having this dinner with Rosemary Chalk. And when I explained all this to her, she said, this is amazing. She said, you should meet a friend of mine. Marcia Smith is a good friend of mine, and she's the head of the Science and Technology Division for the Congressional Research Service at the Library of Congress. And she's just received this request via President Carter to prepare this major study on the potential existence of extraterrestrial intelligence and this issue of the UFO thing. And so she said, would you mind have her calling you? And I said, no, that'd be okay. So she calls me within a few days and asked me to go to lunch, and I went over to the Hill and had lunch with her, and we started talking about things, and she said, she said, this is amazing. You're the legal counsel for the Jesuits here in the United States. Do you think you might be able to get access to the classified sections of the Vatican Library to find out whether they have anything on ETs and UFOs, so we could take that into account in doing our report for the president? And I said, I'll check with my superiors at the Jesuit headquarters. So I checked with Father Bill Davis, who was my immediate superior, and then he checked with Terry, who was the head of the conference, Terry Shea, and they gave me permission to do this. So I wrote the official letter to the Vatican asking if we could have access to their confidential files on UFOs and ETs, and they said no. And I was completely flabbergasted, I said, well, and I wrote him a second letter. I said, gee, maybe you didn't understand, who we are exactly and, what we're doing this for. And so I wrote them a second letter, and they said, no, you can't have them. So I contacted Marcia and said, gee, I'm really sorry, disappointed that this had happened. And so anyway, we got involved in this, and a short while later, she contacted me, and I think she's upset at me for my having publicly spoken about this part of it. But it was that the Congress had cut half of all the money out of the SETI program, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, where they are listening for radio signals from all these different star systems and stuff. And so Congress cut out all the money. This is 1977. And she said, look, I'm not allowed to lobby because I'm a government employee at the Library of Congress, and the people at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory are on government contract. They're not allowed to lobby Congress. So would you agree to put together a group of former astronauts and some other people that you think, people from other churches and stuff, that might go and talk to the senators and Congress people to try to get them to put the money back in for SETI? So I said, sure, I'll do that. Let me check with my superiors, see if it's okay. And I did. And they said, sure, it was okay. So I went around, got Rusty Schwab and a few other guys, and we went and saw all the congressmen and senators, and they put all the money back in. And so the guys at Jet Propulsion Laboratory were so happy about that and excited about this, they started having conversations among themselves. And they said, gee, do you think that we might be able to get the Jesuits to give us a secret or closed-door seminar on what they think the theological implications are for contact with extraterrestrials, and give us some advice on how we ought to proceed if we have contact, right? So so they ended up talking to Marcia Smith, because she was sort of the contact to me, and Marcia asked me if I'd be willing to do that. And so I said I could get permission to do that. I talked to my superiors and that we could do that. And I said, but if I'm going to do this, I'd like to be able to get access to some of the information that you're gathering through the studies. And she said, well, what would you like to see? And I knew instantaneously what I wanted. I said, I want to see the classified sections of Project Blue Book. She said, oh, I don't think that they would do that. I said, well, you're in the position, the president has asked for this, why don't you see if we can do this? So within a couple of weeks, she calls me back and she says, let's go to lunch again. We go to lunch. She said, what a surprise, they've agreed to let you see these things. Now, she didn't tell me whether they declassified them at all, but I didn't have to take any security oath or anything pertaining to it. And so she said that they'll have them available for you next Saturday. It'll be at the Madison Building, which is the brand new section of the Library of Congress. I said there was nobody even in the building yet. It was just a brand new building. And so I went Saturday morning, brought all my ID, and there was a man at the door, a security guy. I showed him my ID. He ushered me in, and we kind of walked down this big hall, echoing in the hall with nobody there, into an elevator, and went way down into the basement. And they opened up the elevator, and there I was in the basement, this big long hallway, and there were these two guys, security guys, national security guys, there. And so they checked all my ID again and all that, and told me I couldn't bring my briefcase in with me, and it's a long story, but anyway, I ended up going in and seeing all this stuff, and so when I saw the photographs of the UFOs, crash UFOs, and all of that kind of stuff, that you've probably heard that long story.
Well, I heard that you'd actually seen the Rendlesham crash as well, the Rendlesham landing in there. Is that true?
No, I don't know what it was. All I know is that it was a crashed saucer, and there was snow on the ground from these photographs that I could see. That it had hit and it plowed this big trough like through this field, and it was stuck in the side of a big bank, an earthen bank, like a 45-degree angle sticking up, and there was snow all over it. And there were United States Air Force guys. They were United States Air Force guys in these parkas, and they were taking films in the photographs. So these were all still photographs that I saw, and they were filming this crashed site. And so I went through I had this little overhead microfiche machine that these pictures were on, and I just went through these pictures until I found a close-up picture of this crashed saucer, and I could see the symbols. There were these symbols that were along right at the bottom of the dome on the spacecraft, and they were all along the thing. I said, now look, that's not Russian, and that's nothing I've ever seen. And so what I did is I opened up the yellow pad. I kept a yellow pad under my arm, and they hadn't taken it away from me. And so I went in, and I opened up the yellow pad to the back cardboard section of it, and I put it under the little microfiche thing, and I adjusted it so that the picture, I zoomed in on the actual symbols, and I got them so they fit exactly onto the little back cardboard pad, and I traced them, absolutely accurately, detail down to the detail, right? And then I closed it up, and then I said to myself, gee, I don't know how long they're going to let me stay in here, and I don't want them to find this. I don't want them to take it away from me. And so what I did is I put all the stuff back into the boxes, and I put the little yellow pen under my arm, and I got up and walked out, and I said, okay, I'm done. I'd like to get my briefcase back. And they give me my briefcase, and as I'm walking away, one of the guys says to me, what is that under your arm there? And I said, oh, that's just a yellow pad. And he said, well, didn't I tell you couldn't take any notes or anything? And so he takes it away from me, and he looks through all the yellow pages of it. And, of course, it wasn't on any of the yellow pages. And he looks on the back of it, and there was nothing on the back of it, so he hands it back to me.